Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite Dark Sorcerer here, Angelus, son of Abaddon. And today, I'd like to further the necromantic study for you, of breaking it down. Last time, I discussed Nikia, the most ancient recognized form of necromancy. Today, or I should say tonight, which is the first of the new week, I'm going to talk to you about Nigromancy. Okay? Nigromancy can be broken down into two classifications. Niger, or Niger, means black. Okay? Mancy, or Mancia, means prophecy or divination. Okay? Basically, it's also represented by alchemy. Okay? Alchemia, which is Arabic. Okay? But it doesn't stop there. If we go into Nigromancy, we can go through alchemy and follow the alchemical process through Old French, which is spelled Alquemie, or the medieval Latin alchemy with an Alkimie. The Arabic translation of alchemia, Al-Kimia, Kimia, the Egyptian chemi, okay? And what's interesting here is, hey, Holly. So, anyways, as I was saying, I just saw Holly on my channel when I did this video, so now here I am again doing it for Dark Sorcery, and she followed me over. That's called loyalty right there. Take note, ladies and gentlemen, that's loyalty. This is what a loyal apprentice looks like right here. Again, gotta pick on you, Holly. But still, it's all fun and games. But anyways, when we look at necromancy or nigromancy has always been associated. Hell, even Shelly 333 has popped in here too. So, awesome. Good to see you two again. So, anyways, the St. Paul Bull in 1326 speaks to a type of pestilence, a type of disease that swept the land, kind of like the plague, the Black Plague, if you wish, the Spanish influenza. Okay, just to name a couple. Now, why do you suppose that necromancy and witchcraft have always been associated with disease, death, and destruction? Why is it that the church and the JCI fought so hard to stomp it out? Think about it for just a moment. Aradia, how you doing? Okay, think about that for just a minute. What was it starting in 550 BE, near the end of the Roman Empire, when the church was rejuvenated and they were given full permission by the late emperor, the last Roman emperor, to start putting limitations on things? Think about it for just a minute. Well, in fact, I'll just tell you. Nigromancy is linked to devil and demon worship, okay? And associated with black magic through the medieval texts, the grimoires, okay? Grimoire systems. Now, in today's world, when we worship a devil or a demon and we summon them, we call upon them through invocations or evocations, such as I invoke you, I summon you, I conjure thee. I conjure you. And then we would say something like, say, for an example, let's go with Belial. I invoke thee, manifest thyself within this temple, this body that I have prepared and set apart to the Dark Lord, yada, 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 okay? The type of invocation or evocation that we would normally utilize in Satanism or witchcraft, okay? Now, a lot of times witchcraft is associated with broom flying or, say, for an example, the stirring of brews and oils and stuff like that in a cauldron, okay? And this is basically where this comes from, is because of the fact that the Latin definition of this is conjuro, adjuro, and exorcizo, okay, which basically means I conjure, I adjure, and I exercise thee. Now, you've heard of the last rite. You've heard of the book of exorcism, okay? This is where this is basically manifested from. But a lot of the heavy influences that I have found in my own research is by the Neoplatonic, the Islamic, and the Jewish traditions, okay? And we've even seen a few influences of descriptions throughout the last 1,000 years, even 2,000 years, if you think about it. Augustine suggested that demons or devils didn't have a body, but they could manifest a body through the elements, okay, and become corporeal. Now, think about the last of the Dark Ages. Think about the early Crusades. People were ignorant. They were always scared and easily swayed. So we would think, okay, you hear the howling of the wind. Is this a demon speaking to me? What about the element of fire, earth, water, the drowning of witches? Okay, the burning of witches. All of this plays into a part. Nigromancy, it was said that because of the spiritual conjuration aspects, were, how should I say this? It's more of the fact that they were natural bodies of air. Okay. And according to Augustine himself, were allowed, okay, allowed, they may be also to be corporeal. But why don't we jump to 1272? Thomas Aquinas. Now, same context, but just different words, different meanings, different phrase. See, Aquinas thought the demons were incorporeal, meaning they didn't have a body. They were more ghost. They were more spiritual, that really goes along with the biblical accounts of spiritualism. The need for prayer, worship, dedication, or even, how should I say this, custom made incense, welcome. Even, it's the term I'm looking for, contributions. Okay. See, in the biblical term, it says walk by faith, not by sight. So every time we speak of their God or their Savior, he's always praying. They always find him praying, worshiping his God, his Father, okay, and so forth. In Satanism today, by Reverend Cain, he breaks it down into worship. He breaks it down into repetition and contributions. But most importantly, he breaks it down into 5 statues of forms of worship. Now, when we think of worship, we think prayers, following, dedication to the work, to that specific spirit. Repetition is constantly performing the same rites in various ways to manifest a result. And of course, contributing to them, either doing stuff for them to manifest their will in this world or for them to do it for us. Obviously, that's 2 different things, but same outcome. So you can see where worship, repetition, and contributions really fit into the play. Now, in the old days, it was said that witches, warlocks, sorcerers, magi, sages worked for the devil, okay, especially around the time of Nigromancy. Because any practitioner that did this was associated with devils and demons. And this is why. Okay. The Malleus Malefictorum of 1486 drew upon Aquino's work and said that the demons spoke through the elements of the environment. Okay. When we get into the discovery of witchcraft by Reginald Scott, 18th century, we see where he brings these angels, these demonic, those that fell from grace into play, and where we can worship them and conjure them. We go back even further to around the 15th century or the 14th century, and we see Nicholas Remy, whose work, Demonolatry, an ancient and historical account of witchcraft, spoke of numerous witchcraft practitioners worldwide of the old world, or what was thought to be the old world, the entire world. We see where he gives the account of chemy or alchemy, okay? Namely powders, poisons, things that were found on them, okay? And how they were associated in this manner. Now, when we go through the regions of where alchemy was heavily influenced, we see it gradually going from the Philosopher's Stone or the Rod of Power within the Grimoire systems. And we see it becoming a powerful source of creation. We see where you take something from its main, components, and you bring it down into the most basic components to forge it into something new. Okay, this was the Philosopher's Stone. When we were speaking of Islamic traditions, the Philosopher's Stone was considered to be a giant, pure, 100% infallible, one of a kind type gem, depicted as a red gem or ruby. Okay, it was created to house a jinn. Okay, a genie, and we all know that genies around that time, depending if it was Islamic, Saudi Arabian, Iraq, or even down into Egyptian, had different spellings in itself. From jinn, genie, to jinn. Okay, Jnin or INN to DJINN. Okay, so there's really different spellings of these beings. Now, ironically, the number caught my attention. 72 jinn. Okay, even Espen Cayenne picked up on this. But he also picked up on the fact that there were also angelics who had relations with the daughters of men, the Book of Enoch, Azazel, teacher of alchemy and forger of weapons and shields, to teaching women to paint their faces in the art of seduction, okay? Alchemy, chemia, the goetic demons, 72 goetic demons of Salamantic, Goetia, okay? And furthermore, we find that the more it went from Middle Eastern down into African traditions, we see where it went into demonolatry, which again, through the 10th century, was heavily Christianized within demonolatry because they were hell-bent on eradicating all other systems of sorcery but their own, because they wanted that power. They wanted that source solely for themselves. But what's ironic, though, is how many systems utilized the Philosopher's Stone. In Middle Eastern, we see in Islamic traditions, it was a stone. But yet in Jewish custom, Jewish influence, it became a rod of power. Now, what's ironic is when we get into circles, we get into geometric shapes, we end up getting into the Goetia, things that deal with Hermeatics and Kabbalah. In necromancy, or nigromancy in this case, it really was surrounded by the Middle Eastern influences at the time. So there's really no surprise that it was associated with demonolatry. For those of you curious, that's Harley. I got Bella down here by my feet. Magic someplace being antisocial. Oh, there she is, way up by the door. Okay, that one takes more of me than these other two. But my point is this. When we get into nigromancy, the association with demonolatry, chemia, and the movement of spiritualism into grimoire traditions really plays a huge part. It really plays a huge part. And especially the influencing factor. Very, very fascinating. But keep that in mind. I'll be back later, either tomorrow or later in the week, to do the final video on this. And I will be reading from my personal grimoire on this. And it's based off necromancy. Okay, and I will be bringing other sources into this as well. But the one thing that I do want to take into account is the early nigromancers from the 10th century to the 15th century, is that it's also associated with vampirism. It was also associated with blood sorcery. So keep that in mind as well, and you'll see where this comes into play in the next video. All right? Have a good day, and until next time, peace.